That is freedom. And that is what we're all here for, to move past the self-imposed limitations. When we work with ourselves optimally and properly, like the books and the classes and the courses talk about, we actually start to taste true freedom. We start to taste the direct communion with the I am. And once you taste that authenticity, nothing inauthentic will ever satiate you. And when that happens, you are well on your way to becoming a butterfly.
Guy here. Welcome to my podcast, Let It In. Thanks for tuning in. And today I welcome back to the show, RJ Spina. And I have to say, this was awesome. What a guy. I'm very aware that RJ's been on a lot of podcasts and had a lot of conversations. And so we didn't get into a story today. I encourage you to listen to the previous episode that I did on that. His story is phenomenal, by the way, his own personal journey of healing. And today I just wanted to really create a heartfelt, practical conversation. One of the bugbears I have about spirituality is that we can consume, so my bubble is just down here as well. I'm doing two things at once. Consume so much information, but where does the rubber meet the road? Where do we actually apply the changes in our lives? And today I think we really captured some really practical elements as well, along with what RJ's wisdom has to come. And I invited him back on the podcast again in the future, as I really enjoyed this conversation today. If you're listening to this on YouTube, please be sure to let me know below, a simple comment, a like, a share, anything to help me continue to get this channel out there and these podcasts out there. I'm loving it. And hopefully I'll get to meet you in person someday soon. We got retreats all over the world happening now. They're all selling out. It's phenomenal, the wave of what's happening. People are leaning into this work more than ever, and I'm just grateful that I can be a guide for other people that want to lean into the best version of themselves. Anyway, much love from me. Enjoy this podcast. See you soon. RJ, welcome back to the podcast, my man.
Thank you for having me, Guy. It was my pleasure before. It's my pleasure again. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, even talking off air, we were like, God, over 2 years ago, it goes so quick. It's lightning, actually. It's quite scary in some respects, you know?
Yes, it's unreal, actually. I'm looking forward to the life review to see what I missed.
Exactly. One thing I was pondering on this morning when making a cup of coffee just before jumping on the podcast with you is like, when you came on the show the first time, you kind of like burst onto the scene. You know, it was like, never heard of it. And then your book came out. You were on a lot of podcasts, and we won't get into your story so much today because we covered that in great detail last time. But how has the response been from that moment? Because your story is pretty unique. It definitely challenges a lot of beliefs. And I'm just curious, how's this last 2.5 years been since we last spoke?
I'm white knuckling it. I'm holding on because I kind of can't believe all the things that are happening. I think, Guy, the best way to describe it is the appetite for the work is truly amazing. And I can't work hard enough to almost keep up with the appetite. It's been amazing. That new book, which came out in August, there's 2 more books already coming out, as we were talking about before we started recording. I'm now doing my whole 2024 schedule. I announced it just previously, so people know all the different classes and courses that they can sign up for 2024. There is a ravenous, as you know, Guy, there is a ravenous appetite for some real, dare I say, wisdom and higher consciousness understanding. And the success of the books and the classes and courses is there because people want to work with themselves optimally and get the most out of themselves and the most out of their life. It's been remarkable. It's been absolutely remarkable. And I really never really gave it a thought, but I never had any expectation. But I am, frankly, pleasantly surprised at, we'll use the word successful, but how successful it actually has been. And it's an honor and a joy to actually provide these teachings and this guidance. It's really incredible.
Do you feel, where do you feel people are at when they come into you to learn? You know, because I think what I find interesting, and one thing not grappled with, but I'm always looking at when working with people, is that we've been conditioned to out-resource our skill sets, if you like. You know, if we're sick, we go and see a doctor, they give us a pill. If you want religious, you go and see a priest, and, you know, everything's outsourced. And it's just like, tell me what to do, and or give me this, and then I can just carry on with my life. But clearly that paradigm isn't working. It's all breaking down. And do you find people coming to you are accepting of that and are really ready to look in? Or do you find that there's still that mentality happening?
It seems, Guy, the people that stumble upon RJ are people that have probably tried various modalities, belief systems, spiritual or otherwise, and they've probably reached some kind of level where there isn't any more progression or advancement. And so everything really is timed perfectly. I mean, our lower consciousness can't see that, but people find out about my work and me, I guess, when they're ready to work with themselves in a different way. I don't really get too much resistance from people, because I just don't think I attract people that are still working with lots of resistance. I attract the people that want to get rid of the resistance. So it seems like a quite harmonious union that happens exactly when it needs to.
Yeah, beautiful. And it's just an important point I want to raise on the podcast as we get into the discussion today. But my next question to you then, with your second book, Change Your Mind, you dive in heavily to the subconscious. Why?
That's the question, right? So, excuse me. There's been plenty of studies that now show that 95% of reality creation comes from the subconscious mind. So, and if we look at that for a second, guys, so our thinking mind, right, is only responsible for 5% of the life that we create for ourselves. So the true treasure, and I wanted to write the treasure map, if you will. The true treasure is removing the limiting beliefs that have been drilled into us through societal conditioning and brainwashing and all these kind of things, which are real, by removing these blocks, because what's in there is what's really creating our reality. So if we can bring the reality creator to the forefront of our conscious mind, and we can see what it is that we've aligned ourselves with that is limiting the reality that we're creating, I feel that we can give birth to what I call the superhuman. And so I felt it was imperative, and this is why it's the second book upon the first book about how to heal yourself. This is how to liberate yourself, how to remove all the limiting patterns that we're not aware of, hence in the subconscious. I feel that this is the understanding and the work that humanity is going to be using, not only to liberate itself, but to create so-called heaven on earth, is by removing the limiting beliefs, the 95% reality creator, by investigating the subconscious mind, getting them out of there, and then replacing them with the unlimited nature of the I am, of who and what we are, the fractal of God that has no limitations.
Yeah, it's a fascinating one, isn't it? I always recall Bruce Lipton, like I've read his books, I've had him on the podcast about 3 times, and he spoke about, though, because I'd like you to dig deeper into what you see a limiting belief is, because he spoke of that between conception and the age of 7, I think like 90% of our limiting beliefs are formed. So before we even have a conscious mind, but as an adult, what always used to confuse me was like, well, I'm trying to rationally think about something, how I formed that belief, but yeah, I didn't have an analytical mind between conception and 7. So how do you see how we get programmed, how it works, how we store it, and then how does it sabotage us?
Oh, that's a
There's
great
a
question.
lot in there.
Yeah, we talked for a while just with that one. So,
Yeah.
let me give some context. So let me put it this way. We talk about the subconscious mind and we talk about the ego mind. Okay. Now, there's cross-pollination there. And I want to make this distinction because I think it'll be helpful. So there's cross-pollination between the subconscious mind and the egoic mind. Now, in general, the subconscious mind are all the things that have been implanted, all the information that's out there perpetually that we have had implanted within us without a conscious choice. So if we're bombarded with certain information about whatever, right? And if you hear it enough and see it enough, you actually get programmed. That's actually how it works. It actually seeps into the subconscious. Now, we didn't make a conscious choice to align ourselves with that information, but it's in there. It's absolutely in there. Now, the things that we make the conscious choice about would be our ego mind or our ego mind identity. So now some of these things we consciously choose to align ourselves with, but we're aware that we're choosing, say, a certain religion or a certain role that we want to play or a certain concept that we found enticing or exciting, and we align ourselves with that. This is really the difference between the ego mind and the subconscious mind. The subconscious mind, we don't have a choice because the subconscious mind is the greatest, from my perspective, is the greatest recording device ever invented. And the subconscious mind goes beyond what just the five physical senses perceive. The subconscious mind has to do with our more subtle body of energy. Now, when we look at each other, our five physical senses, from my direct experience, we only perceive about 30% of who and what we are. The other 70%, our larger body of energy, is outside of physical sensory perception. Now, this larger body of energy is still receiving data nonstop, still receiving information. And it lands within these subtle bodies of energy. And these subtle bodies of energy are actually an extension of the subconscious mind. So all these things are landing. And I think in the book, I use the analogy of a bedspread and little marbles on the bedspread, and they leave indentations. So not only is our 30% being indented through our five physical senses, our larger body of energy, 70%, is being indented. So that's how programmed we actually are. There's nothing anyone can do about this. This is just what happens, Guy, when we incarnate here. So it's going to happen to everyone. The key is to investigate what is driving our behavior. Why am I really doing this? And once we get to the core motivation, we are then revealing what has been buried within our physical and subtle bodies of energy that we're completely unaware of. And until we bring that into the light of the conscious mind, we will simply recycle our experiences. So the key for me is just to come up and hopefully this is what the second book has done, to come up with a very simple but elegant and powerful way to examine our beliefs. And our beliefs are based upon what's driving our behavior. And once we see it and we recognize it, Guy, from not being germane to who we are. So in other words, it's something I picked up from mom, from dad, from college, from my friends, from the internet, from grandpa, whatever. That has nothing to do with me. I picked that up. That's been programmed into me. Once we see that it doesn't belong to us, we no longer have to adhere or operate at the behest of this. And we literally remove that one subconscious program. The consciousness starts to expand. Our body of energy starts to open up, and more of who and what we are becomes tangible. And then eventually through this process, we can own our own mind. And owning our own mind is the whole reason why we're here. You can think of owning your own mind as to realize the self or self-realization. Then you're operating from a place of authenticity throughout your entire life, and every facet of your life will be upgraded in a way that's beyond measure.
Yeah. Who doesn't want a bit of that, right?
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Exactly. Yeah. So I was just starting to see visuals as you were breaking that down so eloquently. And I just want to repeat something so listeners, me, we all get it. So what you're saying is then there's an I am. There's a part of us that's divinity. It's unity, source consciousness.
Yes.
As we transcend into physical form, we have a subtle body. That subtle body is the larger aspect of ourselves that is receiving information continuously. But that information is not the I am. Right?
You got it. You got to keep going. I'm sorry.
Yeah, please. Okay. So then to break that down, then that information that is not the I am, that we are collecting data continuously to allow us to function as a human in human form and slot in, is then obviously shaping our ego and the way we perceive every single moment, which is then tainted, not truth, but it's only true to us because that's the body that we've inherently kind of, I guess, gained, worked on, experienced. So then the role then is that we are now starting to get back to the true I am and defrag what is happening. Would that be a good estimate?
Oh, better than good. I mean, you got it, my friend. Yeah. So ego, mind, identity, okay, from a purely physics perspective, also stands for electromagnetic interference. And that is what is broadcast here. So that's what's get implanted. And then mistakenly, we also align ourselves to some of these things. None of that is our true signal. Now, the end result of that is this human character, RJ, whoever the hell RJ is, or Guy, whoever Guy is, and all these different things. It is not who and what we are, and it is not the I am directly. And so in order to experience the I am directly, and we can even call this enlightenment or self-realization, whatever word you want to use, we all must do this work of bringing to light all the things that are not germane to the I am, that everyone gets conditioned to because it's a nonstop bombardment of electromagnetic interference, which creates the ego, mind, identity. And it is the liberation from the electromagnetic interference is the alignment of body, mind to the I am. That is victory. And that's what we're all here to actually do. We've just lost sight of that.
Then from what you've experienced with working people as well, and your own journey, because obviously you went through a very challenging time yourself, how much do you feel that subtle body that's getting influenced from everything around us, our environment, is actually affecting our physical bodies, our health? Right? Because it's the last place where we look, because we always continually go to a physical and we look externally. We don't go to the I am.
You got it, my friend. So the physical is all the way at the end and downstream, right? So when we're working just with the physical, right, we're living on the edge of a miracle rather than going all the way in and seated directly in the miracle machine or the I am. Now, what you do from there affects everything, like unparalyzing yourself and doing all these different things. You can't do that while operating downstream because we're getting further and further away from actually what we are. And the focus, obviously for a variety of reasons, the focus is always the body. We start at the body. There's very little efficacy in operating by focusing on the body because the body is an end result that is born of the I am. So if we want to change physicality, right? This is what it's not the whole thing. Part of what I did to unparalyze myself and overcome all these things is I worked directly at the heart of the miracle machine, which actually dictates everything else downstream. So we want to work from the miracle machine, the I am, and not start out all the way downstream, living on the edge of a miracle with very limited efficacy. When we work with the unlimited nature of who we are, the I am is God in action. When we work with that, there truly aren't any limitations if we have removed the programming, the subconscious pattern, egoic mind, which is why I wrote Change Your Mind, because that's the point of what that does.
Yeah. So then how do we work with the egoic mind? Because obviously we need an ego, but like the kind of way the conclusion I came to on my own journey was that I was chemically dependent upon the way I think, which was keeping an environment, my body stuck in an environment, just like sugar. You know, there's a comfort I'm getting from that, even though I know it's not serving me. And every time I try to break the cycle, you might do it for a day or two, the craving's kicking, and you're back. You know, hence why people gossip, hence why people put other people down. Like there's a feeding mechanism. That's how I kind of interpret it within ourselves. That's keeping us stuck in those states. And the moment we try breaking those cycles, it's hard.
Okay. So first, Guy, you're brilliant. Okay. So what I call this, what you just explained, just what I call it is a reverse dopamine hit. There is an addiction. There is an addiction to that sense of the false self. And this is what self-sabotage is. We will give ourselves the experience, whether it's a frustration or sadness or anxiety, in order to feed that false identity to keep it in place. And I call it a reverse dopamine hit, which keeps us small and limited. So that's absolutely right. I just call it a reverse dopamine hit because it sounds cool or whatever, but that's exactly what it is. Now, it's very simple to bust through this. Okay. You just don't give in to the craving. Whatever that craving is. I've worked with people that crave the sense of failure. So they give themselves opportunities so they can quote unquote fail, so they can stay limited within the ego mind identity. So their sugar is a feeling of failure. Maybe someone else it's of anxiety, or someone else it's of depression, or someone else it's of loneliness or whatever. But so Guy, the remedy when the craving kicks in, right, is to simply realize that you're the awareness of the craving, not the craving. Just like the painter is not the painting. So we become aware of the craving. Now, through that detachment, we'll have some space between the I am and the craving. Now, as the craving comes up for whatever it is, doesn't matter. As that craving comes up, if you meet the craving with pure presence, meaning just observe it, just watch it. The I am is so powerful and so high frequency that it will alchemize the craving if you sit in the I am long enough. And this is how we can overcome depression, anxiety, sugar, makes no difference. When we operate this way, this is actually how we can transcend all of that by meeting it with pure presence, which will alchemize the craving, and you will liberate yourself from the self-sabotage that has led up to the reverse dopamine hit, which keeps us going back into the limited self.
Yeah. I guess the key to all that is that you got to be fully in, haven't you? You got to go, I want to do this. I'm going to participate. I'm willing to change. Otherwise, we're going to fall back into our old story all the time. Because the one of the greatest challenges is that mind coming up, isn't it? Is that little self-sabotage in part, you know? How did you get through it? But you must have had those challenges too, right?
Yeah. I mean, we all have those challenges. I came into this incarnation very detached. I was leaving my body as a kid and doing all these things. So I was really never under the illusion or delusion that I am this human experience and that I am the body mind. I'm something other than that actually leaves this suit, right? And then I come back into the suit to have the full immersion experience of being human. But no one has to be a mystic or a master to do this. It just takes diligence in terms of working with yourself properly. And the most important thing to realize is that you are the awareness of what is going on. And once we get the space, Guy, if we identify with every craving, every feeling, every thought, we've lost control. There's no sovereignty and there's no freedom and there's no ability to transcend these things because we're identifying with what we're aware of. So if we can all sit in the understanding that we're the awareness of something and that we don't have to act upon it, We don't have to act upon it. This is how we overcome everything. This is the addiction. The strongest addiction is the addiction of identity. That's the hardest one to break, right? My thoughts, my feelings, my story, right? That ownership, that attachment. Now, if we can root ourselves in the present and these things pop up, thoughts, emotions, feelings, cravings, they pop up, there'll be the tangible recognition that you're something other than those things. And once you recognize that you're not those things, they won't rule your life. And once they don't rule your life, you can now own your own mind. And now this life becomes your own.
Bah, that really resonates. You know, it really got me thinking about, see, my biggest struggle was that identity self. And there's been, when I sold my supplement company to step out of that, I thought, no, I'm not that identity. And I just fell apart, mate. Like, it was just unbelievable, really. Even though I told myself the whole time, I'm not entwined. That's not my identity, you know, and there was something feeding me that I must strive to work. I must push. I must set goals. I must actually do more, and easily getting caught up in that identity then, which is then obviously deflecting from other things maybe I need to be addressing and looking at to be more present in this moment. I mean, it's pretty slippery, the old belief system. And I recall as well, and this leading into question, I keep referring to Bruce Lipton only because he's done a lot of work on it. But I remember him saying, because I was like, well, what are my limiting beliefs like? And he said, well, just look at your life. And every choice point that you've made has been driven by something subconscious. So you can look at your relationships. Are you happy with it? Look at your financial situation, where you live, your environment, your education. Everything has been driven from that. To start to break that down, even though we might be completely unaware, it's never even come into our conscious mind once. What do you suggest? I know you go deeply into it, the book, but what do you suggest we can start doing if there are aspects of ourselves or our lives that we are starting to bubble to the surface, that are starting to come into our awareness to go, actually, maybe I do need to not change trajectory here. And
the only way is to do the work, because the bombardment of low frequency electromagnetic interference is perpetual. And it goes so far beyond human comprehension and the five senses and therefore the intellect. So the only way to break free is a level of diligence in terms of introspection. And the book lays out a very beautiful, robust process to do that. The only way to do it is to go after it like your life depends on it. And I mean it. So people get afraid of the D word, discipline. Right? So self-control and self-discipline. Now we learn self-control and self-discipline by working with ourselves optimally. Again, it's not caving into the thoughts, emotions, actions, and behaviors, because until we have recognized the I am for what it is, all of our thoughts, emotions, action, behaviors are in context to something we have aligned ourselves with, a belief, a concept, a role, so-called knowledge, or an experience. Now, none of those are the I am. They're way downstream for the I am. And one of the main ones that all of us have this hard time, and you were just talking about it, Guy, is this need, this fervent need for productivity, right? I got to do this. I got to, go. I got to do this, right? Okay. This is the slave mentality. Only a slave quantifies its existence through productivity. Just let that land for a second, right? So that is not the I am. The I am, the fractal of God, is whole and complete as it is. And it's only interested in exploring the depth of its unlimited nature. That has nothing to do with productivity. Nothing to do with productivity. So if we feel the compulsion to quantify our existence through how productive, how much of my to-do list did I check, whatever that is, right? Switch from, if we must quantify, switch from quantifying our existence by productivity to how present you have been throughout the day. How much of the I am, how much of the real you has been here today.
Hmm.
That is an accomplishment worth going after. How present have I been today? How much have I avoided past, future, past, future, past, future? How much of me have I experienced directly today? And just start that way. That is a very worthy achievement. From my perspective, that is the worthiest achievement.
Why do you feel? Yeah, everything. I'm just like nodding my head, going, "Oh, that's gold." Why do you feel people are frightened to go there?
Great question. Okay. The ego mind identity, the EMI, okay, is bankrupt. Okay. The egoic mind, the finite mind, the lower consciousness doesn't authentically know anything, which is why the finite mind constantly wants more and more and more information, because it doesn't authentically, intrinsically know anything. It's bankrupt. So it clings, Guy, to everything for a sense of a false self, for a sense of itself. Because as soon as we detach and let go, the ego mind disappears and we recognize that it has nothing. So its defense mechanism is to reach for anything. Let me hold on to this belief. Let me hold on to this experience that I had. Let me hold on to this concept. Let me hold on to this so-called knowledge that I read or saw. It holds on out of fear, because as soon as it stops holding on, it disappears. So it's a fear-driven activity because there's nothing there. It's completely bankrupt. So if it doesn't hold on to anything, it has a panic. The key, it has a real breakdown. So the key is to observe the breakdown. Just observe, like we talked about, let the I am completely be aware of it, and the I am will alchemize that fear, because fear can only exist in the absence of the divine. The I am has no real fear. You're immortal and you're perfect. It's a fractal of God. The I am has no fear. None. So when we actually taste that tangibly, it will alchemize all the fears of the electromagnetic interference or the ego mind identity.
Yeah, it begins to transmute, doesn't it? It's fascinating. And I keep reflecting on my journey, but we have a saying when we run our retreats and workshops, we reveal, we feel, and then we heal. So to sit with those feelings and stay detached and not make them mean something or project something is slippery. It's really challenging to do.
Oh,
because
it's without a doubt. Yep.
Yeah. And that's the art of it. But when we feel the body finally give up or relinquish that grasp, like you say, and that alchemy occurs and that transmute, that's life changing. I mean, that's what changed my life, hands down. Once I relate to my body and my emotions differently to how I'd been conditioned, then everything changes without a doubt.
Yeah, you got it. That's beautiful. I love that. That's I couldn't agree more. And another thing that we're doing when we actually do what you just said that you do on your retreats, we're going from reacting to responding.
Yeah.
Right. So reacting to this thought, this feeling, right. Reacting, right. The predictive programming. That's your patterned mind. That's your subconscious patterned mind. That's what that is. That's what reacts, right? The I am response. And one of the responses that we can have is to simply let it alchemize. And this is the liberation. This is what is life transforming. In fact, I'd even go on to say that it's not your life until you do this. It's someone else's or something else's.
Wow. Yeah. Sitting that's huge. I want to talk a little bit about energy, because I noticed that a third of your book is on energy balance, and you've spoke about it as well. You talk about frequencies, you talk about energy. We've talked about the subtle body. We've talked about the divine self as well. How do you start to then see that, or how can we look at things differently to support our energy? Because another thing that's very challenging when doing this work is that quite often, it did for me anyway, my energy plummeted. Like it was like I was gasping for air, suffocate. I lethargic. I'm stirring in my sleep. I can't get motivated. You're telling me to, be aware of this and that. Do you know what I mean? It's like you're imploding, and hence the ego structure that's clinging on for its death that's happening. But I'm curious to hear your perspectives and on all of that and what we can do about it.
Yeah, that's universal, by the way, what you just, okay. So let's, excuse me, let's look at it metaphysically. Okay, what's really happening? Let's go beyond physical sensory perception of what the higher mind can actually perceive. Okay. Preceding that voidless and unmotivated, right? I just don't want to do anything, don't know what to do, don't know who I am, right? Can't get myself going. Okay. That is because the energy that we were using before, we were using it to attach ourselves and align ourselves to roles, identities, beliefs, concepts, ideologies, the concept of success. So this is what was driving our behavior before, right? So we were motivated by things outside of the self because our energy was put upon a belief, a concept, a role, an ideology, so-called knowledge, and we identify ourselves with these things that we've picked up from the electromagnetic interference. So that's what's been driving our behavior. Now, when we do inner work, for lack of a better term, we start to realize that's not me, that belief, that's not me, that concept, that's not me, that role, that's not me. So what happens is all that energy that you were stuck to that was the driving force for all your behaviors, all your actions and behaviors, that energy is now returning to you because you're no longer identified with it. Now, in the beginning, we don't go from being stuck to a belief, a role, a concept, an ideology to complete alignment with the I am. It doesn't work that way. First thing is we get misprogrammed. Everyone does here. We start to recognize it by inner work. The energy that we were using to stay aligned to all these different things, to the electromagnetic interference, the energy actually starts to return. Now we're not motivated because our energy isn't stuck to all these things. So now we're just here. And it's like, I can't get off the couch. I don't know what I want to do. I don't know who I am. Because what was motivating you before has been severed. You are now untethered from what was driving your behavior. Now what happens is, we could say through meditation, eventually the alignment of body mind to the I am will occur naturally if we let it. So now the energy is not going out to all these different concepts, beliefs, ideologies, and roles. The energy is now being commanded and mastered through the communion with the I am. And then all of a sudden, we'll start to discover joy, passion, and our true determination for what it is that we desire to achieve based upon what our actual life plan really is. But there's this fear that happens because of this untethered nature of, my God, I'm not doing anything with my life. I sleep 18 hours a day. I don't care about anything. Excellent. That happens to everybody. Mystic, master, it doesn't matter. That happens to everybody. The process will be the alignment, the attunement, the energy to the I am will happen. And that is the undefeatable will. When that happens, it's like you have been broken free. You are now untethered. Nothing can stop that inner motivation because that motivation is you. But until we find it, until there's alignment with the energy, with the I am, we're going to be on the couch, so to speak, unmotivated. That's okay. That's part of the process. This void, this I don't care about anything. Perfect. It's kind of like the caterpillar has now gone into the cocoon, right? And it's going through this metamorphosis. It's going through this change. If you allow that process to take place, guess what's going to emerge? The real you, the butterfly. So that's really, the energy is no longer stuck. So metaphysically, the energy is not stuck to all this electromagnetic interference. It returns, but it hasn't quite married itself to who and what we are. But if we remain working in this way, it will happen.
Yeah. Beautiful. Yeah. I keep thinking, kept coming to me then, Reverend Michael Beckwith quote, which was, the pain will push until the vision pulls. And the question I have for you then is that, well, from what I see so often is that people are lost. What's my purpose? What direction to go? I do day-to-day things, even though I really feel our purpose is to be in the moment and present as possible, to be honest with you. But having a vision that pulls you into is magnetic. You're clearly on your path and creating ripples in the world and things. And Do you feel that if more people just went inward to let go of what is not theirs, to free themselves of that vision, that pulling will naturally come, as opposed to having to find it, chase it?
You got it. I mean, there's one, I often say to people, who's the one that's even looking for it? Right? That's your character. That's your ego mind is the one that's looking for it. And that's the block. So the one that's grasping for something is your ego mind. The ego mind only grasps. So what will happen if we go through this process that we're talking about, right? That we will naturally start to align ourselves with our highest excitement. You don't have to look for it. You don't have to acquire it. This is not a becoming. Okay. Those are tricks of the unawakened mind. Eventually, you will start to feel who and what you are, and you will be juiced up about something. The ego mind doesn't know what it is, but you're not the ego mind. We have to let the flower bloom, right? When we plant something in the ground, do we run out there the next day, dig it up to see how it's coming? Right? Oh, it's got to be done. It's got to be done. We don't do that, right? Wisdom grows within the soil of patience. Okay. So if we can just allow the process, we won't have to reach for anything. And I promise everybody, eventually you will be jazzed up. You will be passionate about something. Now that something will be the real you, whether that's cooking, gardening, writing a book, opening a business. Who cares? The world is your oyster. Let it come to you. Let the aroma of the self waft up and inform your mind. And that is not a looking. It'll simply happen. And then act on the highest excitement, because the highest excitement is your higher self, and you are a fractal or 2.5% of your higher self. That's your higher self giving you an energetic wake up. Excited about this? Go for it. That's what this, and that's how you know you're on your life plan, when your motivation has nothing to do with anything outside of yourself. It's more about just expressing this feeling that you have inside, this joy, this passion, this love that must be expressed. That's when you know that you're in alignment, not when it's about what's out here or what he's doing, what she's doing, or I need to do this or need to do that. That's still the unawakened mind. Trust in the process that the caterpillar is going to become the butterfly. It already is the butterfly. The tree is in the seedling. You are the I am. Whatever you desire is given. They come from the exact same place. If we can reside in that place, it will be known.
Beautiful. I want to get metaphysical for a sec, RJ. Mm-hmm. Working off that, because everything we spoke about is actually really practical and useful. Like people can take away so much from today, but I'm curious to know your thoughts about, do we choose the life that we come here to do? The operating system, the subconscious mind. Obviously, there's free will involved. Like we are given free will, so it's up to us to decide when we want to let go of what's not ours. Why are we coming into this carnation with, I guess, a bit of a clunky system that is making things so bloody hard for us and challenging? I mean, if you look at what's going on in the world right now and all the conflict, it's all driven by beliefs. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yeah. The answer is degree of difficulty, which gives us the greatest reward. So the more difficult it is, the greater the reward. Now, I want to be very clear, Guy, about when I say reward, what the hell am I talking about? What reward? Okay. The I am, the fractal of God that we all are, the reward is the deepening of our reservoir of love and wisdom, whose subsets are our talents and abilities. That is what evolution actually is. That's the point behind all this, to recognize who we are and let our love and wisdom deepen through the trials and tribulations that we all raise our hand for by incarnating into the lower frequencies of the physical universe. There is no evolution, or very limited, I should say, very limited evolution, if we all just did a swan dive every time we did a dive. right? I can swan dive. That's a fairly easy dive, right? Are we becoming better? Are we actually honing our skills if we just keep doing an easy swan dive? No way in hell. So what do we do? Well, why don't I try this triple backwards somersault flip, right? That looks really hard. Let me do that, because if I can master that, I'm actually evolving myself. That is what incarnation into the lower frequency, where you and I are, and everyone else is watching or going to watch. That's what this is. We are doing the triple backward somersault because the degree of difficulty, because the reward is greatest. And the reward is the deepening of our reservoir of eternal love and wisdom, who subsets our talents and abilities. And that is the greatest evolution of consciousness possible, by giving us the greatest obstacles and challenges that we co-create through our life plan to see ourselves in the act of creating and therefore overcoming it. That's the reason why things are so tough here, because it's worth it. Degree of difficulty.
And do you feel like people being born now at this time are coming in more consciously aware that there's because humanity in general, the consciousness is shifting, there's a frequency shifting that is kind of holding a mirror up to humanity, which is kind of saying we all have to go with it or we're going to suffer, essentially.
Yeah, you're on the money again. I was just did a couple of interviews with well, they're all young to me now. I'm old, but anyway, I just did a couple of interviews. I mean, with people in their early 20s. I mean, one gentleman was 21, and another gentleman was 23. These guys are so brilliant and so advanced. It's like they're starting on third base. I mean, they're starting on third base, and you're right. We're seeing a wave. We're seeing a wave of souls coming in that are so advanced because they're anchoring in this ascension. They're absolutely anchoring. And it warms my heart for me to talk about all the stuff I talk about. And they're right there with me. They're right there with me. They're like, oh my God, I totally get it. They're right there. And these are young adults. We're absolutely seeing a wave, and it's going to continue for quite a while. A wave of what we call more advanced or more evolved, which are two different things, by the way. More advanced and more evolved souls coming in to help us in this ascension process to create a new reality for ourselves by operating with ourselves more optimally and more holistically.
Yeah, I didn't have a clue at 21. I know that much. It took me a long time to get anywhere. Yeah, absolutely. So where do you, I find myself asking this question quite often on the podcast at the moment then. Where do you see humanity going, or do you have an opinion? Do you feel we're going to go in the right direction, or how do you view it all?
Yeah. Okay. So let me first say it this way. I wouldn't be here if we weren't going in the right direction. And I mean it. I wouldn't show up otherwise. So we are absolutely going in the right direction. We're watching a spiritual detox. That's what we're watching. All this low density nonsense that we believed in and thought was true, all this manipulation, misinformation, disinformation. We're going through a spiritual detox, my friends. We can't move past what we don't understand. So it's all got to come up, just like when we do our own personal detox. Got lots of stuff coming up out of every orifice sometimes, right? Not pretty, messy, uncomfortable, but look what's at the other end. Much healthier, much clearer, much calmer, much more clear-headed in every way, right? Okay. That's what's happening. And no one should have any fear about what's going to happen with humanity. I wouldn't even be here if we weren't going to operate properly. Right? Don't get caught up. Anybody, don't get caught up in, oh, I just watched the news. Don't get caught up. That is the background. That is the background. Stay detached and realize the truth. You're immortal. You're perfect. You're whole and divine, just like everyone else is. And until they all realize that, and more people are starting to realize this and work with themselves properly because of people like yourself, Guy, they're working with themselves properly and they're leaving this stuff behind through non-identification or detachment. That's the key. Humanity is going to be just fine. Is it going to get messy when you do a detox? Sure as hell is. It's absolutely going to get messy. It's supposed to. It's supposed to. Enjoy the ride. Surf it. Surf it. Stay above it and surf it. Don't try to swim against a current that doesn't even exist. Just stay above Everything is going to work out exactly as we intended. I promise, we all signed up for this. All of us. I just happen to remember we all signed up for this. It's actually going exactly according to plan. We all love a challenge. We talked about why, because the reward is greatest, which is our own evolution. And we're seeing the trials and tribulations. We're seeing the thrashing of a dying consciousness, Guy. A third frequency, or what we call a third dimensional way of operating in consciousness. We're seeing the ending of this. We're seeing the ending of it. And humanity has been, and always will be just fine.
Yeah, I hear you. Yeah, I fully believe that too. I really do. One last question for you. Then, what I find fascinating, along with all this, is we can't change the outside world. It's always going to carry on. People are going to behave the way they behave. They do what they do, and the more we continue to throw rocks at that and put our energy to that, we are then being that leaky bucket. We are giving our power away. We are giving our energy away. So what else are you going to do? Why wouldn't you want to come back and master the inward game? That's the question I was continually asking myself. That really got me across the line. Because what's the alternative?
You got it. It is the multiverse. Is a multi-frequential, multi-dimensional hall of mirrors designed for our self-mastery. That's what this is. And from my perspective, I've been everywhere. There is nothing like this, our God's multiverse. There's nothing like it. From my perspective, it's the greatest creation because it amplifies and mirrors our perpetual and eternal state of being and state of consciousness, which lends itself to our own self-mastery. It never ends. This is a game, because no one ever really dies. This is a game of self-mastery. And self-mastery is not an object that lies outside of the self. Self-mastery is an inward game through self-control and self-discipline. This is the key. Not getting caught up, not identifying, not freaking ourselves out or freaking out our husband, wife, whatever. Yeah, not doing that. Not reacting, responding from the I am. That's the key. And you're absolutely right. It's a game of self-mastery because this is it, right? The key is, Guy, from my perspective, the key is to realize it's a dream. We are dreaming the idea of being human. And what's the key about dreams? To wake up. The key about dreams is to wake up and realize it's a dream. When you wake up in the dream, you realize you can do anything. Now, when I say that, I don't mean it as some kind of slogan that you can do anything. I mean anything. All limitations are self-imposed. All of them. Wake up in the dream and realize that you are a master creator. And you start by manipulating and commanding your own energy to create the life that you truly desire, that not only benefits the real you, but benefits everyone else simultaneously.
Yeah. Love it. RJ, where can I send people? I'll make sure links are in the show notes. And where can they grab your book as well? Change Your Mind.
Thank you, Guy. The website is ascendthefrequencies.com. On there is my team did a lot of work. My entire 2024 schedule, which includes some in-person events. You'll see all the different classes and courses that I'll be teaching in 2024. You could sign up for the newsletter on the bottom of the website to be kept abreast of what's the newest happenings, what's going on. The book, the first 3 books are now available on Amazon. Supercharged Self-Healing, which came out, as you know, November 2021, which is in its 8th printing. Unreal. Incredible. That's available on Amazon. Change Your Mind came out in August. That's available. And my 3rd book, which is not yet released, called Access Superconsciousness, that comes out August 8th of 2024, but that's available to pre-order as well. So just go to ascendthefrequencies.com and there'll be a litany of all this higher consciousness rambling. And if it speaks to you, just dive in. I welcome anyone who resonates with what is going on here. Please come join.
Yeah. Beautiful. Well, we covered a lot of ground today, mate. Is there anything you want to leave the listeners to ponder on before we wrap it up?
Yeah. There's only one word for me. Freedom. Freedom. Now, when I say that word, freedom is not doing whatever you want, whenever you want. That's not what I'm talking about. Real freedom is escaping the tyranny of the finite mind and limiting body consciousness. That is freedom. And that is what we're all here for, to move past the self-imposed limitations. When we work with ourselves optimally and properly, like the books and the classes and the courses talk about, we actually start to taste true freedom. We start to taste the direct communion with the I am. And once you taste that authenticity, nothing inauthentic will ever satiate you. And when that happens, you are well on your way to becoming the butterfly.
Beautiful. RJ, thank you so much for coming on the show, mate. It's great to see you. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me, Guy. It's my pleasure. You're brilliant. Thank you so much for having me.
You're very welcome. Thank you.